And good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of JMU Sound Off. I am Jonathan McNamara in Richmond, Virginia. Your James Madison University Dukes coming off of a 20-9 win over the Marshall Thundering Herd on Thursday evening on ESPN. The first time the Dukes had ever been on the ESPN network in a game that we'll mention this later. We had the opportunity, three of us, to travel up to Huntington, West Virginia. We'll talk about our experience with the team from the Thundercast, who could not have made our experience any more enjoyable. Some big news today that we'll also get on today's episode. The James Madison Dukes ranked 25 in both the AP and coaches poll. That is the first time in program history that the Dukes are ranked in both of those polls. So big news as the Dukes coverage continues to get national attention on the issue around their bowl eligibility. That's another topic that we plan to talk tonight. Got a great guest list tonight, including Marc Davis from WTKR. We're going to get his perspective on the Dukes transition to FBS, as well as his thoughts on Old Dominion season to date. And then we're going to hear from the team at the Monarchists, give us the ODU perspective going into the Saturday 8 p.m. contest on ESPNU, get their thoughts on ODU season to date, as well as what they see as the keys to this weekend's matchup. And then we're going to hear from Zach Hittie. He's going to give some tips and information on the JMU Alumni Association as we head towards homecoming. Wanted to make note, as always, of our sponsors at Skyline Financial Partners. Appreciate their support each and every week as they continue to allow us to bring this podcast to you. And then our friends at the Montpelier Collective. We want to make note, Montpelier Collective will be joining the Duke Club happy hour at Hotel Madison at 5 p.m. on Friday. So if you're looking for something to do when you get into town on Friday, join the Duke Club and the Montpelier Collective. You can find more information about that at montpeliercollective.com, as well as on their social channels. And with that, going to bring in the other members of our Sound Off team. We've got Steve Brown, Taylor Adkins, and a very special guest in the chair for Michael Evangelista. We've got Courtney, and we wanted to bring Courtney on because this is the first podcast since there was a little bit of news made in the JMU universe. So, Courtney, you look great, first of all. And if our listeners don't know the news, what happened in your life over the last couple of days? As we want to give you an opportunity to say Michael did well, right?
Yeah, I think I'm going to keep him. I'll keep him forever.
So for those who are watching the audio or listening to the audio version of this podcast, we're flashing a nice little ring. Michael did good. I don't know if he went to Jared, but he went somewhere.
He went somewhere, and you know what? Sometimes the secrets are better kept as secrets, but I'm really glad he went. So
tell us a little bit about where Michael popped the question for those who might not follow you guys on social.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I was already going to have family in town, and little did I know, his family, my family had been scheming for weeks. So I was stressing out that my family from Florida was coming up, and the day we were going to go for a hike, it was foggy, it was rainy, they weren't going to see mountains. But they kept telling us, just, we'll figure it out when we get to the top. Let's just see what we can see. And it didn't really register to me at the time how pushy everybody was that we get to the top of this mountain. But we went to Humpback Rock. If you haven't done it, you absolutely should. It's a quintessential Charlottesville area hike. It's stunning. And yeah, he asked me to take a photo of me looking over the edge. And that is definitely not something typical. And as I turned around, I said, oh my God, I think he's going to propose. And turned around, he was down on one knee. My sister-in-law filmed the whole thing. Awesome. It was absolutely magical. Absolutely magical. Yep.
Well, Courtney, your family here, this is a family show. We've had our kids on episodes, and we wanted to bring you on because we know how important you are to Michael's life, as well as you let him have some time with us every Sunday. And just wanted to say on behalf of everyone here, congratulations. And we know this is going to be now a busy period of time as you guys plan the wedding. So thanks for continuing to allow us to take Michael away for every once in a while, because we appreciate his contributions. So, and also wanted to give you, before you leave, a little chance to give a little shout out to Crozet Plant Social. How can people find you?
Oh, yeah. No, so thank you for asking. So you can find me on Instagram at Crozet Plant Social. Really just, it's a passion turned reality. So hopefully if you follow me or you stop by the shop here in downtown Crozet, you learn something, you have some fun, and you walk away feeling a little bit better about your plant journey than where you started. So yeah, give me a follow, give me a shout.
I need to find a way to still get my plants. So I am not only a fan of Crozet Plant Social, but I'm a customer. So we'll work that out offline.
So just pop into Crozet Pizza, grab a slice of Crozet Pizza, and go downstairs, and you'll see them. And if you want to, they'll bring a truck full of plants to homecoming, and she'd be more than happy to probably sell you those.
That's right. Anything y'all need, I'm here for the people. And when I say people, I'm here for the Dukes.
Awesome. Thank you, Courtney.
Good.
And we'll tell Michael it's time for him to do a little work now. So we'll bring him on.
Yeah, definitely.
as he makes his way over, I'll bring in Taylor and Steve to the conversation now. It was awesome trip getting to bring you guys along with the journey up to Marshall. Taylor, starting with you. Really great time, as I mentioned in the lead in, having a chance to work with the guys from Thundercast. As I said on our post game recap, they gave us their Wi-Fi, they gave us parking spaces, they cooked for us. And just I really was indicative, and from at least from my perspective, was kind of exactly what all the Marshall fans did that we interacted with. Probably one of the more welcoming fan bases, at least that I've had the privilege of interacting with on the away game trip, not only this season, but really in my career as a fan of JMU. Just your thoughts on the trip to Marshall.
Yeah, and not to say that we haven't been welcomed by other fan bases before, but this was a step above the rest. We had trouble even getting set up at times because we were having so many great conversations with the Marshall fans, and some of them would stop us when they found out we were doing a podcast and wanted to give us some background and history of Marshall. And that's the one thing I kind of picked up on, is just the I don't know if there's a per capita type term that I could use, but the affinity of these Marshall fans was really humbling. I mean, just they would recite stats from a specific game from the 80s and just were really excited to have us here and seemed to be really excited to have us in the conference. And all of them were overly complimentary of JMU's success and how much we've elevated the Sun Belt, and just seemed to really really enjoyed the fact that we were in the conference with them. So I do want to give a shout out to the Thundercast guys who did set up that opportunity for us. I think we all grabbed a couple of phone numbers from some of the folks that were at that tailgate and offered to, roll out the red carpet when they come back to Harrisonburg. But would really just encourage, I know it was a Thursday night game and there were a lot of JMU fans that could not make that game for various reasons, but 2 years from now, if that game's on a Saturday, I encourage every member of the JMU Nation to come out to Huntington. It's a great experience. The drive out there this time of year was beautiful. But Marshall is definitely a bucket list venue or bucket list location for away games in the Sun Belt for football.
And Steve, I know we have an order, but I'm going to bring you in just because you were also there. I know you kind of were kind of odd, really, because I said you were, when we had our conversations both in the drive up and then in some of the post-game conversations, you were really just impressed with the really entire experience. And so I wanted to give you just a chance to share your thoughts as somebody who not only joined us for the broadcast live from Marshall, but you got a chance to go on the sidelines and got to experience some of what Marshall has to offer from a game day perspective.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great experience. I apologize to those that listen after we did our deal in the McDonald's parking lot. I listened to it and I said the word unbelievable, I think like 1,000 times. And I'm sorry for that. I was just excited and didn't know what else to say. But and it really was unbelievable in a lot of different ways. I enjoyed being with the folks, all of them, from the place where we had lunch. We had lunch at the Peddler downtown across from the Delta Hotel. Wonderful waitress, outstanding food. If you get a chance to go, there's a nacho dish that they make with wontons.
Those
nacho
wontons.
And beef. Go ahead, man.
I'm dreaming. No, I'm just saying the wontons I'm dreaming about. They were amazing.
Wonton, beef brisket, and some sort of chipotle sauce on them. I mean, it was I don't want to say unbelievable. It was really good. How about that? Everybody we interacted with was great. And it's not that way everywhere. When we went to Troy, it was bizarre how the people didn't want to interact with you at all. I tried to talk to them at the sports bar we were in Troy, tried to talk to them at the game. They looked at you like they couldn't believe you were saying something to them. They weren't engaging at all. That's the opposite of Marshall. I think they thought they were probably going to, be able to pull that game out. I think it became pretty clear when the rumors started circulating the tailgate lots, probably an hour and a half before it actually was official, that Rasheen Ali was not going to play. And then a variety of other people probably weren't going to play. But at the end of the day, that shouldn't really modify what you do. We have a number of backs. If one of our top backs went out, it wouldn't alter what we did. But it probably does for them. I think the drop off for them is pretty severe. From Ali down to their second guy, who I thought was good. I didn't think he was bad at all. The lights in that stadium are really awful. I don't know what's going on with that stadium and their lighting. It's terrible from the stands. It makes you feel like you have glaucoma because everything looks kind of gray or like a film over it, and you can't really see. On the field, you could see. So it was surprisingly much better on the field. But that's my short piece of it, and then I know we'll go around again, but want to get Michael back in.
Yeah. So again, if you're a fan of JMU, there's a lesson to take from those Marshall fans. Of the benefits of being a welcoming fan base to those fan bases that come and make the trip to Harrisonburg. I know, as we all talked about the transition to FBS, one of the things we were all excited about is we are pretty pumped about having away fans who care, who make the trip to Bridgeport. So it starts this weekend with the fans who will make the trip up from ODU. Welcome to a tailgate. Give them a drink. Give them some of your food, because it just makes for a better experience all around. So with that, we will get to the game. Michael, I know you had the opportunity to watch the game on television, which is a completely different perspective than what we had in the stands. Lots of storylines in this game. Obviously, a lot of talk about Jalen Green's performance, 5 sacks, bringing it to 13 on the season, now leading the NCAA in both of those categories in terms of sacks and tackles for a loss. Ryan Hansen's big day, really playing a major role in the special teams game, allowing JMU to really win that kind of field position battle as we went throughout the night. Your kind of high level thoughts on what you saw watching the broadcast on Thursday night?
Absolutely. I think number one, it's good to be back on the Sound Off after taking a short week hiatus. And number two, Steve, I need to go back to you. We're not going to let you go on this one. The restaurant's called what? The Peddler? Is that correct?
The Peddler. It's called the Peddler.
Very good. Very good.
The Peddler, right beside the Marshall Cafe, and 2 people from Marshall, as we were wandering into the Marshall Cafe, stopped us and said, "You don't want to go here. We have to go here because it's a meeting. You need to go next door to the Peddler. You will be very happy." So wonderful food. They were closed though in the game, and I don't blame them. The game was over at 11. It was Thursday night. It was hard to find food. We ordered from Domino's, I think, at the hotel, sitting around the bar till like 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning. So, but I wouldn't blame them. I don't know if anything in Harrisonburg would be open past 11 o'clock on a Thursday night.
I was going to say Domino's. There's a time and a place. So shout out to them. I've had a few slices over the years. But yeah, time to nerd out about the game. I think I was at a conference for the game, so I didn't have any downtime until about 2 o'clock in the morning Eastern, but I did watch the game afterwards. And if you're a fan of physical line of scrimmage, smash mouth, slobber knocker football, this was a hell of a game to watch. And for me personally, I enjoyed watching this game more than any other game this year. Georgia Southern may be a close second just because of how much we dominated them on the line of scrimmage. This was a fun one to watch. Even though we were up only 3-0 at halftime, I think we had like 275 yards of offense to I think 46 on their end. So we've got to find a way to finish plays, I think, at the end of the day. We talk a lot about the defense, right? Jalen Green, hell of an evening, 5 sacks, 8 sacks overall, but shout out to our offensive line. We returned essentially the same offensive line from the year before. We're down our right tackle, Nick Kidwell. We're starting a redshirt freshman at left guard. We're starting a guard at right tackle, and we allowed 0 sacks from a team that allowed 7 sacks the year before.
Porter got abused. Got abused.
He was
great.
He 100%. He's going to play on Sundays. He was double teamed. If you watch what's his name, Porter versus like our offensive tackles, he was stonewalled at the line of scrimmage, which was fantastic to watch. John, you hit it on it earlier. Ryan Hansen, 7 for 7 punts inside the 20, 3 on the 1-yard line. Cheese had some really solid returns. That one juke in the third quarter was awesome to watch, and it's going to put other opponents on notice. And also, lastly, let's talk about the Jordan McLeod fan club. Coming back from the knee injury, he admittedly was a bit startled at the start of the game, ran for first downs, broke tackles, rallied the offensive back. He mentioned he communicated some of the reads he was seeing on the field with the offensive staff, a lot of one-on-one situations with Reggie Brown, and he just took over in the third quarter. And mind you, the game was 20-9, but we out-yarded them, or our total offense was 405 yards to 169. Unreal. And obviously we all know Marshall had -4 yards rushing. I've got some pretty interesting stats for you guys later on in the broadcast around just how dominant this team is so far, but really fun watch. Had a ton of sleep afterwards, but really enjoyed this game overall.
Awesome. And Taylor, you were sitting next to me in the stands with a great group of Dukes, including the guys from JMU Sports Blog. I think one of the things about the game is while there were, it was kind of back and forth in the first quarter, as Michael mentioned, the game never felt like JMU was in maybe a tough spot until maybe the start of the second half, when the game, obviously they had some field position things started to turn in their favor. The safety, But the Dukes just really seemed poised on the sidelines. Obviously, the moment when Jordan McLeod goes down, we get a chance to see Billy Adkins for the first time in a while, which was a big storyline for those in the crowd. We didn't know when Jordan went down with the injury, if Alonzo was going to come into the game or it was Billy Adkins, but Billy Adkins comes into the game and leads JMU to a field goal. Want to mention again, Camden Wise 2 for 2, another performance where we didn't have to worry about the field goal kicker, and those points mattered in this game. Kind of your thoughts just watching the game from inside the stands with a huge group of JMU fans who made the trip to Marshall. There were definitely some moments we can all point to, but definitely a game where we did feel like it was in control of JMU from start to finish.
Yeah, it was a weird feeling. And I think it might have been you that even mentioned at one point, what was it you that said something about the Youngstown game? Yeah. It was one of those games where as you're watching the game, you can clearly see who's the better team on the field. But at the same time, and Michael mentioned this, we weren't finishing plays. 405 yards of offense. We had a great offensive production. That little bubble screen to the wide receiver, I kind of felt like, when you're playing your friends on Xbox and, you have that one play that'll always kind of work.
I loved it. It was the play. They gave it to us the entire game. I loved it.
There was one play. I think I turned around to some guys and it was third down. And I said, I bet it's a bubble screen to Sproles. And sure enough, I mean, it was once again. So it couldn't be stopped. But it was used appropriately, unlike when you're playing Xbox and you're just running the same play 10 times in a row. Our offense was a little more creative on Thursday night, but we talk about the quarterback play. I continue to be impressed by Jordan McLeod, and I guess I always tend to be the one to bring this up in the podcast because I think early in the season there were conversations we had offline where again, I knew he was an athlete. I knew he was a veteran quarterback. It was just, could he become the team leader and the game manager that needs to be successful for JMU? And I mean, just kudos. His leadership, his comments off the field in press conferences. I mean, the guy was playing banged up all game, stuck through it, continued to play a performance that, puts him in the running for Sun Belt Player of the Year. And then even let's talk about Billy Adkins real quick, because when he did come in, you couldn't help but hear some gasp in the stadium because it was, once again, here's the backup, here's Marshall, thoughts are going through your head. Billy completed that first pass, and that gave us the opportunity to have that field goal at a very critical point in the game. So while Billy's play in the stat book wasn't much, that was a very important play that he confidently came in and he made. He was credited with those 3 points, and when those 3 points were really needed at that point in the game. So I want to give a lot of kudos to Billy in coming into a game situation like that. But overall, like you said, we saw the team that came out late in the third quarter and the fourth quarter is the team that we had seen all game, but the offensive production finally came in there. We talk about how great our special teams is. Michael's already railed off some stats, but they had 7 starts inside the 20, 6 inside the 10, 4 inside the 6. I don't have the stats. I don't even know where I could find this statistic, but I would wonder if there is a punter at any level in college or the NFL that has had a game like that. I'm sure there's a statistic out there, but that was all pro, all American type performance. And then Michael mentioned the rushing yards, the -4. I mean, this is a team that rushed for over 200 yards on Virginia Tech. They rushed for over 100 yards on NC State, these P5 programs. They were fairly confident coming into the game that they were going to put up one of the better rushing performances of the year against us. And once again, JMU showed that we are far and away. I mean, I'm at the point now. I understand we're not playing P5 teams week in and week out, but this is one of the best defenses in the country, hands down, at any level against any team. There's no way that a Sun Belt team that's allowing 30 yards of rushing per game is going to transition to a P5 level conference, and all of a sudden that number quadruples. So JMU fans, you have the opportunity to witness one of the best defenses in the country at any level, and that should get everyone excited for how the rest of the season is going to go.
And Taylor, I just want to add to that real quick. Not only do we lead the nation at allowing 32 yards rushing per game, we lead the nation also at allowing 1.1 yards per carry. But we also lead the nation by allowing only 37% of the time a positive rushing yard. So think about that. 37% of the time that another team rushes the ball, they run for positive yards. That's pretty astonishing, if you ask me. So I agree with you. dominant defense is the name of the game.
And I think also it's worth mentioning, this is the best rush defense that college football has seen in 25 years. This is the best sack defense. I mean, the sacks that we're producing that college football has seen in 20 years. So again, we all know that the Sun Belt is the top G5 conference in the country, which means it's a conference that can hang with any of the 5 conferences in the P5 level. And I'm telling you, this is one of the best, not only one of the best defenses in the country this year. If you look statistically across the board at teams that won national championships, this is one of the best defenses that college football has seen in over 2 decades.
Just want to comment on a couple things you said, though. First of all, to Billy Adkins, it would have been easy for Billy Adkins when, first of all, Alonzo Barnett is named starter to start the year, and then Jordan McLeod is the backup. For somebody who, last season was a backup who was, vying for the starting job in preseason camp with Todd Sateo, it would have been easy for Billy Adkins to either transfer or pack it in. But for those who follow him on Instagram, he has remained steadfast in not only his support of the program, but his belief in himself. And I think that is really just something we've heard anecdotally from people who cover the team, is that his work ethic is tremendous. That he's somebody who's never, hung his head. And even if privately he's had some doubts or questions, but at least publicly he has been a positive force in that quarterback room. And I think that speaks to the ability of this coaching staff, Tino Sinceri, to continue to keep these guys motivated, to keep them focused. So I could not say more positive things about Billy for what he's done and what he did on Thursday, but what he's continuing to do in terms of commitment to his craft and commitment to the team. That's just something that would be in a lot of, especially the transfer portal era, would be easy for him not to do that. So shout out to him. I also want to mention Jordan McLeod, because not only did he come back in the game, but one thing we saw after the injuries, he had some of his biggest run plays of the day after he went down with that knee injury. So his ability to play through the pain, some of those runs that he had were huge moments in that ball game that allowed us to sustain drives. So I just continue to think he's taking this team, he's taking this position in his role, and owning it. And then lastly, one comment that was mentioned in the post game that I wanted to make note of. There was a lot of discussion going into this game about Rashid Ali not playing. Obviously, that's a key factor for Marshall's offense. But remember, JMU did not have Todd Centeio in the game last year against Marshall. And I thought in the post-game press conference where Charlie Huff was making his comments, he said, if I had a backup that was ready to play in this game, I would have put him in, which I thought was an interesting note considering Cam Fancher was clearly hobbled at points in the game, but that Huff was so transparent saying that he didn't have a backup ready to play. Just thought that was an interesting note.
So was he really all that hobbled? I mean, watch the tape. He's not all that hobbled. He runs when he wants to run, and then he limps around when he wants to make up for the plays that he misses. I don't give any credence to that. He can play when he feels like it until he got his ass kicked. And when he got mowed over numerous times, then he started to act like he couldn't limp, or he's limping around.
Well,
So
the
I
only reason I bring that up is there were a lot of Marshall fans last year who said, "Well, you got to have a backup ready." Well, the same applies to you, Marshall. So you got to play with what you have, and you got to make sure anyone on your roster that's eligible to play is ready to play. And I just thought it was interesting that in the post game comments he mentioned that they didn't have one that was prepared to play. So
their backup was a 6-year senior, by the way. Just want to throw it out there.
Well, I've got some insight. I got some insight for it though. If you want some insight from the sidelines.
Well,
please.
I was standing with a Marshall alum who graduated in '77, and Huff talks to him on a regular basis. And so what I heard is that everybody's calling for Cole Pennington to play. And so what the comments were in the post-game presser were related to Cole Pennington. And that's him basically saying he's not really ready yet. And everybody I talk to, and especially this guy on the sideline, says he's ready. Put him in the game. Everybody wants to see him play. Put him in the game. He'll be fine. And I think that's what the illusion was. Sorry to interrupt you,
No.
Taylor.
Well, and this is the same coach, and I don't want to rub salt in the wound because I don't know Coach Huff, but I know I know a lot of the Marshall fans I've talked to. Some of them have been disappointed in not only some of his decisions, but some of his post-game comments. And we talked about last week his comments after the Georgia State game about being in Atlanta late at night. It's on a Saturday. I wouldn't want a coach to start off the game making excuses and making suggestions where it's kind of like one of those things where, hey, it's not on our coaching staff, it's the players. But I want Steve to get his chance in, and I want to tee him up because he's an in the trenches guy, and I know he's going to bring this guy up. But I just have these stats here, and we're talking about all the highlights. We haven't talked about Jalen Green yet, and that's probably because it's so obvious how incredible he played. So I'm going to tee Steve up with the X's and O's and the trenches and everything he loves to talk about. But this guy, 1.8 sacks a game. That's the second place isn't anywhere close. Okay, in terms of the national rankings, his I believe his 13 sacks for the year. Second place is 10.5, so he's not anywhere close. And you look at these rankings, they're 10.5, 10.5, 10, 9. So I mean, Jalen Green is just running away with this. And right now, he's third on the single season JMU stat list for sacks in a season. The guy has 7 games left. And I love some of the comments I saw from social media. I think John Daka got on there on Twitter. It was like, go get him, who John Daka currently holds the single season sack record. And John Daka is being his biggest cheerleader, saying, go get him. So with that, I want to tee it up to Steve. Jalen Green, the offensive line, the defensive line, the trenches. This is your spot. It's all you.
Love the line play. Before I get to Jalen, and Jalen's also our intern for the collective. Unbelievable. I mean, well, I got to stop saying unbelievable. But it was okay on Thursday night.
It's unbelievable.
Let me give you a couple things, and if you're watching the tape or you tape the game, I'm going to give you a couple spots to watch because you're not going to be able to see it probably on the podcast. But first quarter at 9:43 at the 3rd and 2 play, and this is an offensive play. I want you to look at what the O-line is doing and what Horton does. You can see it twice. They show it twice on ESPN. The O-line seals off the right side, and Horton blocks his guy over to the left, and there's a massive hole for Kalon to get the first down. The next 3 plays are outstanding. The next play is a pass to Reggie for 27 yards. It's a first down. The next play is a pass to Sproles on a bubble for 17 yards. The next is a Lawton 6-yard run. Now the interception happens, and everybody's going to say, I can't believe he threw into triple coverage, which is what I said from the stands. When you go back and watch it, it looks like that the route was muddied a little bit by Knight, that there were 2 guys in that area when he throws the ball, and I don't think he expected Knight to be in the area. So I don't want to necessarily pin that, you got to pin it on somebody. Obviously he threw it there, but it wasn't an issue from the standpoint, I think, of it would have been a good play. When you look at the first series of the defense, at this point, it's clear that they get dominated. Then we get into the Jalen, the whole D-line show. I mean, it wasn't just Jalen, because it takes the whole D-line to do it. So if you look at his, I looked at first down. This is Marshall, 59 seconds to go in the second quarter. Green sacks him, grabs his ankle, and Fancher gets up limping. You look at his face, he looks done. At that point, he looked like he wanted to be done. We end the quarter with a tackle for loss. Third quarter at 10:24, Green's coming to his right. Chroma pushes his player into Fancher, and he underthrows the ball that gets picked by Meehan. Now everybody's like, well, Meehan was beat. He wasn't beat. He was actually playing the play correctly. If you watch the tape, he wasn't beat at all. He was waiting to see what the D-line did, and that's what you do. You wait to see if your D-line guys push and get the pass underthrown, which is exactly what happened. So everybody's like, well, he was behind him. Yeah, he's behind him because he's going to play the ball, and he played it exactly right. And here's the key to the game. Third quarter at 10:17. We're on our 1-yard line. So we throw to Reggie, and he gets a PI, a pass interference. We don't try to run it out of the end zone again. We throw it. There's a safety blitz coming. When you watch the tape, look what happens on the safety blitz. J.J. Roberts is coming in. Tyson leveled him, absolutely levels him on a block because he thinks he's going to blitz the run because he believes we're going to run it in the gap. Tyson goes in the gap and knocks him, right on his rear end. Next play, we throw to Reggie on the first down, same route that he ran before. Jordan stands in and throws it for 54 yards, gets hurt. Billy comes in, and you've already heard about the Billy piece. So other than that, I don't want to take too much time because I could go through these nerdy stats I have forever. And I know you folks out there probably don't want to listen to them, but I love watching the line play, and the line play is better than I've ever seen it. I've been watching these guys for close to 40 years. They will dominate every team they play. I don't care who it is. And I would hope we get to play somebody good in a bowl. I don't know what we're going to do. I hope they let us play in a bowl. And I hope you give us somebody that you think can beat us, because I can tell you right now, I'd put this line. This is Baltimore Raven-esque type line. When you start thinking about the Ravens with Ray Lewis back in the day when they had Trent Dilfer and they couldn't do anything, that's not us. But that defense you knew would ball every time, and this defense is outstanding. So I'll leave it at that.
Couple of points before we want to get to the discussion on ODU, but I wanted to mention the fact that Nick Kidwell was in the stands on Thursday, and a point that was mentioned in a number of things about what would this offensive line look like without Nick Kidwell. First of all, they've shown that they still have the talent. We knew that there were a lot of numbers to bring back 8 of them coming into this season, but seeing Nick's passion and energy on the sidelines for his teammates and what they were doing, and seeing their mutual excitement in the post game, I just thought that was an awesome moment. Seeing him continue again as a part of this culture to remain engaged, I thought that was awesome. I did want us to get though really quickly to, and we can touch on this when we do our kind of final thoughts tonight, but the statement that was made by JMU winning this game on national television with all of the storylines surrounding this, and Matt Berry and the broadcast crew mentioned on multiple occasions throughout the telecast about what this meant for JMU to continue this train of winning, going 7-0, but also the message it would send to the NCAA, the message it would send to potentially the Sun Belt presidents about what their decision, if they would potentially allow JMU to go as far as they could, at least on the field, potentially to a Sun Belt championship game. Want to go around the horn, starting with you, Taylor. Just your thoughts on maybe the bigger storyline piece that took place in terms of the statement that JMU made on Thursday night.
I think the biggest storyline in the nation outside of those competing for the college football playoff is the JMU story. It's the second-year transition team. We're undefeated. For our second year, we're in the top 25, I believe. I believe this is true. We're the only team in the Sun Belt to be in the top 25 the last 2 years. We're the first ever transition team to be ranked top 25 both years. So there's the storyline of that. We're undefeated. We're undefeated against a really good schedule. I mentioned this in the last podcast. Our wins seem to be continuing to get better as the season goes on. I think you have all of that. You have the underdog story, and I just wrote this down to mention at the end, and I'll be quick, is that, every member of the national media that I've seen has been tweeting out and posting about how good this JMU team is, how deserving they are of an opportunity to compete in the postseason, and how they're disappointed with the NCAA. I know there's been some fans here and there of different teams that feel otherwise, but in terms of the unbiased national media, I've yet to find one that's really not on the side of JMU and the opportunities that, could be afforded to it.
Yeah, and it's not just the traditional college football reporters you're seeing it from. I saw Alexei Lalas, the soccer analyst, was actually taking the case for JMU. So this is really resonating in a lot of different circles. Steve, from your perspective on this, I know you've talked a lot about, maybe some of the things that are happening off the field around this, and the conversation with obviously Attorney General Jason Mieres. I saw Mayor Stoney has put out some stuff, or is planning on putting on some stuff on behalf of JMU. There's just a lot of people championing this cause, but one thing that needs to remain kind of maybe forefront in the minds is the team's focused on taking it one game at a time and turning the page to ODU and not getting caught up in the noise of this, especially with it being homecoming week. Kind of your thoughts maybe around this discussion, what's happening, but also the team's focus going into this game against ODU.
Yeah, I'm actually glad that we didn't get college game day. I don't know how close it was. I think it was close. My understanding from talking to that crew the last couple times that they've come to JMU is that there's a lot of debate that goes on normally. And it sounded, and that's why they say we don't announce it till between 11 and 12 or 12:30. They've been announcing it sooner this year than they have in the past, I think, because it's been pretty clear where they want to go. I think this was a harder decision. I don't know, but, obviously not there. But the way that it came out, you could have come out with the Utah thing last night if you wanted to, or yesterday, but I believe they had to wait till they played USC to see how that shook out. But I also think we're in the mix because I think it's an interesting story. But I'm not a media person, as you all know, but if I were a media person, I think the better story is to wait and kind of see where we are further down the road. If we're at 11, if we're 10-0 when we're playing App State, that's a better story. And that might, or you just wait until if we can play in a championship game. I see that somebody's asked a question about if there are any legal issues from outlawing JMU from the New Year's Six game, or is it fair use of the rule? I've not done the research on it. I can tell you that the standard dealing with organizations like the NCAA, think about it when you're dealing with your own church, organizations that you've agreed to be a part of, or your country club if you belong to one. It's difficult to get those organizations to reverse themselves on decisions that they make. The way that you can get them reversed is when they actually go against the decisions that are in their own bylaws or in their own rules. This one's a bit odd. The NCAA has a waiver. They've denied the waiver. It looks, based on the evidence, they had no basis to deny the waiver, from what I can tell. It looks like an arbitrary and capricious decision. And what that means is you had no basis to do it. You just did it because you could. That's when you can fight some of those. But again, those are uphill battles. I don't know, if somebody's going to try to do that. I don't know if a group of people are going to get together and try to file a lawsuit. I don't know any of that. But it's difficult. It's an uphill sled, a sled if you're even trying to do it. So at the end of the day, the team is not focused on any of that. That's fan stuff. That's stuff for the administration to do. They're focused solidly on ODU, as they should be. They're just honestly trying to go 1-0. The other thing, I talked to Nick on the sideline. I talked to Nick. I went up to him when I saw him come down. And I said, how you doing? How's everything going? He goes, I'm here to support my guys. And I said, no, I know. How you feeling? He goes, I'm feeling like we're going to win a game. And I said, are you? I said, it's unbelievable. He goes, I'm locked into this game. The guy, I love the attitude that they don't just talk it. And when you listen to them talk in the post game, you can hear it in their voices. You can hear the way they talk. It's not just coach speak. It's not just player speak. These guys believe in their mission. They're not going to be denied. And that includes Saturday night. Now, you'll hear my promo at the end. But you come Saturday night, and you will not be disappointed.
We'll hold that thought. Michael, before I bring in the guys from ODU, any last thoughts just on the statements and the storylines on the broadcast, which you had a chance to kind of take in real time? We didn't get a chance to hear the broadcast until afterwards, but just kind of maybe any of the storylines that caught your eye or anything you're seeing from this in terms of a statement.
Just win, baby. That's all I have to say.
Simple.
Right.
All right. And with that, we're going to turn our attention to this week's opponent as we will welcome Old Dominion to Harrisonburg for a 8 p.m. Kickoff on ESPNU, another nationally televised game for JMU. We want to bring our guests from the ODU perspective. First of all, somebody who I have had the privilege of working with for a number of years, Marc Davis from WTKR, who covers Old Dominion now in his role as a sports reporter at the station, was previously at NBC 12 in Richmond. And then we have the guys from the Monarchists podcast. If you're somebody who follows Old Dominion closely, I'm sure you're very familiar with their work. And I want to say, first of all, welcome to you guys. Before we bring you into the discussion, I want to say right off the bat that in the conversations leading up to the Sun Belt, one thing the JMU fans consistently mentioned in terms of their wish list for a conference was the ability to be in the same league as Old Dominion because of the rivalries we had in the FCS days, obviously the state connections that we have. So really, really glad that we get to now have these types of conversations on a yearly basis. And thanks for giving us part of your Sunday night. I'm going to go to you first, Marc. Is your perspective as an independent journalist who I mentioned the lead-in covered JMU in your role in NBC 12, cover them a little bit at TKR. Maybe just your thoughts on the season so far, the transition so far, and some of the storylines around this program going into Saturday's game against Old Dominion.
Well, I mean, I think it's been a lot of fun to watch. From down here, JMU, in all the markets I've been, they've definitely, no matter where you go in the state, it seems they have the following there. I mean, it's and where we are here in Norfolk, it's kind of like a melting pot of many allegiances. So there are plenty of JMU fans down here, guys, and it's been fun to see kind of how they've been able to kind of maintain success no matter what's been thrown at them. So that's been a lot of fun to watch. The transition, I mean, you guys were talking about it before we hopped on. I don't think you could ask for anything better as how the transition's going. I mean, they're wowing everybody who they go into. So I think it's been a lot of fun to see what they've been able to do. And I'm looking forward to kind of seeing how they progress here the next couple of years.
And my last question also for you, Marc, from the media conversations now happening around maybe JMU's bowl eligibility and JMU's, whether they're going to get a waiver, whether the NCAA is going to reverse course, whether the Sun Belt's going to reverse course. Just as a member of the media and somebody who interacts with some of these reporters and knows some of the figures who are making these comments, any thoughts just on the overall conversation around this issue from an objective perspective? Because obviously where we stand, but I am curious just from your perspective as somebody who is truly unbiased in this discussion.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody say, you know what, this is really the right call. You know what I mean? Like nobody, I haven't run into anybody who thinks that they shouldn't be allowed to play in a bowl game this year. I know it was part of the conditions for joining the conference. But when you have a team like that, I mean, for the NCAA too, I mean, when you have a team who's doing what they're doing, I mean, why wouldn't you want to showcase that? Why wouldn't you want to put that center stage with the bright lights around it? So, to answer your question, John, I haven't met anybody or talked to anybody or spoken with anybody who's like, I really think this is the right call to hold them out of a bowl game. I don't think this could have any benefit at all. I mean, to me, it's crazy.
Marc, I'm gonna give you a quick context to my relationship with Old Dominion. I grew up in Virginia Beach. My first college basketball game was Old Dominion. I went to the CAA tournament as an Old Dominion fan, just not because anyone went there, but we lived in Virginia Beach. I mean, Old Dominion is the professional sports team of Hampton Roads. And I know there's a couple people watching this now that are probably mad that I'm admitting my Old Dominion allegiance. I know Brooke Boyd, who's on here, every time we would play Old Dominion in basketball, I would always join in ice cream and cake. So I just want to say I do have not only an appreciation for Old Dominion, but when it comes to historical context of the of the athletic programs, I probably know more about Old Dominion pre-2000 than I do JMU 2000 because I lived it. And so I'm well aware of the team and just kind of their progress. And then I also worked at UTSA for a few years and continued the Old Dominion rivalry. Was actually able to watch my brother get engaged at the fountain at Old Dominion when UTSA went there. And it just so worked out that I was on the team flight. So just want to say all that to start off that Old Dominion's been a part of my life. But as a member of the media, we have some comments. Taylor, showing your roots again. I am. I'm all true.
I just wonder how many ODU shirts you secretly have somewhere in a closet or in a dressing
There
room.
is a picture that is not prominently featured in our home, but it is a shadow box of an Old Dominion game ticket from the very first football game against Chowan. Am I correct?
Yep.
Yes. Okay. Against
Chowan.
Yep. I have the game ticket framed. I have me and my wife, pictures from the game there. So anyway, I'm a JMU fan for anyone that's doubting. But let me ask you this. As a member of the media and has been covering this team this year, one stat that I saw that stood out to me was 7 games played, 6 games have been decided by a score or more. And that's going from to the Division II level. I know it was during a hurricane to also all the way up to Wake Forest, where Old Dominion was dominating that game. And pretty much the only thing they really didn't win was the score. So talk about what you've seen from this Old Dominion team and how those games are reflective of the team this year.
Yeah, I think early on, I think the offense, for games 1 and 2, and I know the Monarchists guys will chime in here too, no doubt. But that second game against Louisiana, I mean, they had everything clicking, and we were like, wow, this offense is going to be a lot of fun to watch. Then they kind of, were relying more on their defense. The offense kind of fell off a little bit for 2 games. Then when they went to Marshall, they were up 21-3. The offense all of a sudden found itself, but then they weren't able to hold that lead. Then the next week it was kind of like, okay, more on the defensive side. And then last night we saw, I think, a good balance of both. So, it's one of those things where, yeah, I mean, like a lot of these games could have gone either way. We could be talking about, a 7-0 team against a 6-1 team right now. Who knows? But it's that consistency I think they're trying to find, especially on the offensive side of the ball. That's going to make or break how these last 5 games go. And I know the Monarchists can correct me if they think I'm wrong.
No, I think you're right on the money there, Mark. The consistency throughout the whole season, like we were kind of worried for a little bit that the offense had peaked in week 2 against Louisiana. We won that game and it was going to be like last year, just a big downward slide. I think the offense hit the bottom against Commerce for a number of different reasons, but we've seen kind of a steady increase of getting back to what we expected from the offense. And really, it's a byproduct of new offensive system. It's very different from last year. And coming into this season, we didn't have a quarterback that had taken an FBS snap. The one quarterback we have with experience had, a little bit of mop-up duty at the FCS level from Fordham. So I think you're seeing some experience grow with the quarterbacks and also more comfortability in the system. And Saturday and yesterday, I think that's the most consistent offensive performance we really had all year.
And not only
I thought you guys.
Go ahead.
Ron. No, please go ahead.
Let's say not only did you have inexperience at the quarterback position, but you have 58 new players. So
right,
half the team is new. So there are a lot of growing pains through the first 7 games of the season. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that. You'll have specific questions, but we're starting to see things come together.
Well, I guess the question I've got is, would want to congratulate you on how they played last night. I thought that was one of the better games I've seen ODU play in a while, against a very good App State team. Now, you're going to hear people say, all App State's off and they're in a slide and blah blah blah. No, that was just a team that got beat up by ODU. And I thought, coming off a bye with App State after getting smacked by Coastal, they'd come in, raring to go, and they were until you guys punched them in the mouth. As Mike Tyson says, everybody's got a plan to actually get punched in the mouth. So I'll ask this of Gary, and then, Ron, you chime in as well. What about ODU worries you going into playing JMU from the ODU standpoint? There's got to be some things there that concern you. What is it from the ODU standpoint that worries you?
Really, most of our concerns are on the offensive side of the ball. We certainly know JMU's defense is probably one of the best in the country, if no one at the NCAA wants to admit that or not. They are one of the best defenses in the country, leading the nation in sacks, and we've given up a boatload of sacks. I think sacks are kind of a team stat, right, where you can be on your offensive line, but also quarterback holding the ball too long, receivers not getting open. We really hit the lowest of lows against Commerce, giving up 8 sacks to a newly transitioned D2 to FCS school. We've seen some improvement there. I think our offense was at its best last night when the quarterback was getting the ball out of his hands before any pressure could really get to him. So really a lot of concern there of being able to run the offense and get the ball out quickly against a really good front from JMU. I think that's my biggest concern. I don't know, Aaron, if you have something else there you want to chime in on, but that's probably my biggest concern going in next Saturday.
No, Gary, we're on the same page. Sacks have been a big problem all season, but I was looking at those numbers before we came on, and we have given up 37 sacks to this point in the season. But 26 of those sacks were in the first 3 games. 11 sacks in the last 3 games. All right, so clearly there's a trend going on of those sacks decreasing. One thing that we saw last night, like Gary alluded to, was the short and intermediate passing game. We asked Coach Ronnie and Grant that question in the post-game presser, and clearly they've made a commitment to that. I mean, throughout the most of the season, our rushing game has been very strong, and our deep passing game has bailed us out. That's where we've had a lot of our scores, long runs and long passes. But last night it was a whole different ball game, and once we started doing that, it kind of flipped the script. So I think that the team is starting to buy in and understanding if they can do those sorts of things, it's going to make those other things easier. And that's going to be really important this week because as you guys know, you're very, very, very good against the run. Like less than 1.5 yards per carry or something like that. We're averaging 4.5 yards per carry. So something's got to give this week. I mean, potentially whoever wins that battle is going to be sitting in a decent position to win the game.
No doubt. And I wanted to shift gears just a little bit here to talk a little bit more about the defense. And for those who follow me over the years know that I'm very much into the recruiting game. And I'm still a bit salty to see Jason Henderson not wearing purple and gold. Shout out to you guys for getting an absolute stud from Central PA. Outside of Jason Henderson, talk to us a little bit about the Old Dominion defense, players we should know about, maybe things schematically that have changed year over year.
Yep, I can take this one. We've traditionally run more of like a 4-2-5 look on the defensive side. This year, because of really the strength in our linebacker core, we've switched to a little bit more of like a 3-3-5. But at some points, it almost looks like an amoeba defense, right? You've got safeties coming up to the line, dropping back, pressure coming from different areas. I think we're much more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball this year with our blitz packages. If you look at Jason Henderson's numbers last year, he had boatload of tackles, didn't really have a whole lot of tackles for loss. This year, it's really the opposite. He has 13 tackles for a loss now. He's being sent in the backfield with a pretty high frequency. Obviously, everyone knows Jason Henderson, All-American, all that fun stuff. But I think we've had really great play from our safeties, especially in coming up and stopping the run with Terry Jones and Sean Asbury. We've been able to rotate about 5, 6, 7 different corners in through some of our dime packages. Keandre Harris had a fantastic game yesterday. He has not played much this season, but down to punt at the 1 and then game on the line last drive. He is targeted by App State's offense with the fade route in the corner of the end zone twice in a row, gets 2 pass breakups, seals the game for ODU. So really it's kind of a rotation of guys out there in the secondary, but Terry Jones is someone's going to come up and make some big plays. I think he's got 1 more year of eligibility left, but he's become a big factor in the run game. Sean Asbury as well, coming up from the safety position. He can cover pretty well as well. I think the concerning stuff for us on defense is how long they've been on the field this season. We are dead last in the country in opponent time of possession, and that stacks. Like, you can get by with it for a couple of games, but games 8, 9, 10, you start seeing some wear and tear, some injuries stack up. But we've done at least a good job of getting some of that newer talent that's been recruited in the last year or two on the field and starting to make an impact. And we've been waiting for that for a little while now.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah, and luckily last night,
Go ahead, Aaron.
I'm sorry, I was going to say, luckily last night, and we didn't win the time of possession, but we had the ball for, what, Gary, 27, 28 minutes, which is a good 8 minutes more than we have been. So
yeah. App only had 4 more plays than us yesterday, and that's the closest that margin's been all season long. So happy to see that improvement. Part of that was we actually had our longest drive of the season on offense, which was 5 minutes and 50 seconds in the first quarter. So trying to help the defense get a breather on the sideline.
No, absolutely. And just want to hit on one more point. You mentioned Sean Asbury. I remember his recruitment. I think he came from Boston College, local Virginia kid, goes to ODU. I think earlier in the podcast, you mentioned 58 brand new players at Old Dominion. So maybe Marc or Aaron, talk to us a little bit about how Ricky Ronnie approaches the transfer portal, areas of improvement, or maybe are there just younger guys just waiting in line, ready to rock and roll?
Marc, we'll let you take it, man.
Well,
you've been silent for a while.
Yeah, okay, sounds good. I think he's one of these guys that's like just kind of embracing as best he can the new role of college athletics, right? Everybody's going through it. Everybody's going to have some new players. Everybody's figuring out how to do it. But I think he's doing it well. And I would say, Michael, it might be a combination of both a little bit here. There are some young guys waiting in the wings there, getting ready to go, but he's definitely, using the transfer portal and some of those guys are, seeing some good time and making some noise. I mean, Grant Wilson, a quarterback, obviously is one we've already talked about. They have several guys who are really ready to make the noise, and they have some depth there too, I think. So I think he's like everybody else right now who's really just trying to adjust to it and embrace it and understand it's the future landscape of college sports.
Yeah, the team really, I think, did well in the portal this year. They filled just about every hole, every position that they wanted to. The one kind of place that there were a lot of questions is I don't know that they really secured kind of the quarterback that they originally were looking for. They had a target, kind of fell through, but I think it worked out well that Grant knows the offense had come from Fordham. He ended up winning that job, and it was a tightly contested battle between him and Jack Shields. Jack had an injury and was out of that competition for a little while. At the beginning of the season, all the people outside the Old Dominion program were talking about all the things that ODU lost. They said, we lost our quarterback. Hayden Wolf left Old Dominion. We lost our running back. Blake Watson went to Memphis. We lost a bunch of defensive players. But who did we replace?
Ollie Jennings, wide receiver.
Oh, yeah. And Ollie obviously went to Virginia Tech. We won't go into details here, but yeah, he found an opportunity there that made sense for him. So who do we replace them with? I mean, we had wide receivers here already that have stepped up, and guys that have, transferred either from junior college or, from other schools. Kadarius Callaway, I'm sure you guys know that name. He's one of our running backs, has had some quite explosive games in the last kind of
He's leading the team in rushing right now, right? He's been impressive.
Yeah, and he really didn't rush the ball at all the first half of the season. So the team has found those guys to be able to come in and kind of meld themselves with the other, let's say, half the team that remained. And I think those guys they're starting to buy into the system. It's a completely different system than what they had before. And, sometimes you just got to see it and breathe it and live it to, and get a little success to kind of fully buy in. And I think last night was a point, it might be a turning point in kind of not only the season, but going forward with our, a new offensive coordinator.
Do you guys mind if I piggyback off that a quick second?
Yeah, please do. Marc, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so I also think, on what Aaron said, I think all those guys have also kind of taken turns stepping up at different points in the season. If you look at the box scores, it's almost been like a different offensive leader every game. Keyshawn Wicks, Kadarius Callaway had a big game, over 200 yards and 3 TDs against Marshall. You had, a couple receivers each take turns having a big game. So I think these guys, especially some of the new receivers that Aaron was mentioning in Murphy and Williams. Those two guys, have taken turns kind of stepping up. So these new guys have really kind of, had each their time in the spotlight. And it's kind of fun to think about if they could all put it together and have the big game at the same time. But I think it also illustrates how Old Dominion has done a good job at kind of, at times, taking what the other team is giving them and, be it on the ground or through the air and capitalizing on it.
I think that's a great point, Marc. This is an offense that takes what the defense gives. And perhaps the reason why some of those players have kind of explosive games where it kind of goes back and forth is, a team decides what kind of defense they're going to play, and maybe they don't adjust, or they just have something they're having difficulty with. And, the offense that we're running, those players just happen to be in good positions, and they're being in a good position repeatedly throughout that game.
And lastly, guys, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to share your thoughts on one thing that we've talked a lot about in the early areas of this podcast, but then throughout the season is one thing. As a part of conference realignment, we all talked about, we were excited about the Sun Belt was because of the opportunity to play those regional rivalries, to have those games against App, to have those games against Marshall, and then obviously you all righting the error that was us not being able to play on a consistent basis when you all made the transition to FBS and we stayed in FCS. Marc, I'll start with you, and then we'll go Gary and Aaron. Just your perspective as a reporter now who gets to, again, cover two proud programs in the state, and then going into Saturday on full display, seeing these two programs now competing for first in the Sun Belt East, which is what's at stake on Saturday. This is what's great about college football, and it's great to see these two programs getting to do that, and not just Saturday, but hopefully for years to come.
I love it. I think it's fantastic. As a guy who, it's kind of why we do what we do, right? To see matchups in games like this. And, I've been working in the state since 2005 covering college sports. So it's been a lot of fun to kind of see those early years where ODU played JMU in the CAA. And then now that it's back, it's a lot of fun. I love the passion of the fan bases. I love seeing games at JMU when I get a chance to go there and to see how hyped they are and everything like that. A full Bridgeforth Stadium. It's a lot of fun. So it is 11 out of 10, man. It is really cool to see the Sun Belt, bringing these two programs in, and the regional rivalries. I can tell you is why ODU wanted to get back into, a different conference than Conference USA. And now with this Sun Belt East, kind of how the proximity of everybody, especially JMU, I think it is a home run for everybody involved. So it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, there's so much excitement in our fan base with where we are from the Sun Belt. We were really happy to see JMU make the jump and come with us, and also with Marshall and Southern Miss, and kind of being in a conference now with App and Coastal, getting those old CAA day feels back. I was at ODU from 05 to 09, and that was really almost like the heyday for CAA basketball. I remember going to Richmond Coliseum for those CAA tournaments, some knockdown dragouts. Sometimes those actually occurred in the parking lot with some VCU fans. A lot of good times there, and I feel like we're getting back to that. We had App yesterday, and there were a good number of App State fans, and you could just feel that bite in the air that we used to have when we would play JMU or William and Mary or Richmond or somebody like that. Like that kind of intensity is starting to build back up. And we miss that in Conference USA. Like nobody cares when you're playing UTEP and Rice. Like you probably don't know anyone that goes there. I know plenty of people that go to JMU. I know people that went to App and Coastal and Marshall, and it just adds that element of feeling like it's a real rivalry again. So I think, it feels good now. I think in 10 years, it's going to feel even better, provided something disastrous doesn't happen to the Sun Belt. But I mean, just so much excitement, and I can't wait to get back to Bridgeforth. I have not been there in quite some time.
Yeah, we talked about this earlier today, and kind of losing our the ability to play VCU and basketball, that kind of had become our big rivalry, but that is flipped. That's flipped quickly, especially with you guys being so good coming in and kind of really taking it to us, especially last year. That the fan base has, at least the Old Dominion fans base, the healthy rivalry and sports hatred is strong, which is good for the rivalry. And I hope that we bring a bunch of people. I know that myself and Gary and Mike, our crew's all rolling up there. We're really excited about this Saturday, and we're big basketball fans, and so we're playing 3 times this year. So that's super exciting.
Aaron, I think I remember last year, Ricky Ronnie said, hatred is good in sports. I can't quote him exactly, but he mentioned something across those lines.
Well, Aaron and Gary, we want you to know Marc has to work. So I don't know, Marc, if are you making the trip to Harrisonburg, Marc, to cover this game or no? I was going to see, because I know you can't tailgate per se, but I was going to at least say to Gary and Aaron, I don't know if you have tailgate plans, but you guys are more than welcome to crash the Sound Off tailgate. As like I said, I don't know if you heard our intro, the Thundercast guys from Marshall went above and beyond to make us feel welcome. We're going to return that favor to them when they come to Harrisonburg, but the same invitation is extended to you. So we'll share our information. So when you do get to Harrisonburg on Saturday, it's a long tailgate. So my message to not only you, but all the fans, pace yourself, because we got to make it to 8 p.m. So on behalf of all of us, thanks guys for your coverage and your work. Marc, will be following you and your coverage all week at WTKR. I just want to give you go around the horn one more time. Marc, do you have anything planned that you want to push this week? And then the same for Gary and Aaron. What do you got coming up on your podcast this week leading up to Saturday?
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll obviously go pretty a deep dive with both teams. We actually host Ricky Ronnie's coaches show on TV, so that airs every Friday at 7 p.m. on WTKR, our station. So we'll get a chance to sit down and chat with Coach Ronnie about some of these things, and then do other things throughout the week during the show, and we'll push all that to digital too. So if you guys are following along, WTKR News 3, Marc Davis Sports is my Twitter and my or X and my Instagram. So feel free to follow along, and looking forward to getting there and seeing you guys.
Yep. I'll just plug ODUmonarchists.com. We launched our website over the summer. We've got a bunch of content planned for this week and going into the weekend. And then I am at 3G Williams on Twitter /X or whatever it is these days.
And we recorded our latest podcast today. It'll come out tomorrow morning. So any Monarch fans that are listening, it'll be there for you. Or any Dukes fans that are just curious what 3 knuckleheads think about the Old Dominion program. We're super, super excited about this game, and hope it's drastically different than last year.
We trashed the Sunbelt refs at the end, if anyone wants to just skip to that part.
There you go. I'm already a subscriber, so looking forward to you. We're listening on my Monday commute, but thanks guys, and safe travels as always to Harrisonburg, and look forward to interacting with you if possible as we go through the game, and then as you said, as we go throughout basketball season. So thanks guys, and we'll talk to you down the road. And with that, we are now going to turn our attention. It's homecoming. So part of homecoming is we have a lot of alumni coming back to town for the first time in a while, and we wanted to bring on somebody, if you're in section 109, you're probably pretty familiar with, and that is Zach Hittie. Zach is representing the JMU Alumni Association. Zach, thanks for waiting until a little longer in the broadcast than maybe you thought. But before we get you to talk about the Alumni Association, Zach, you're a proud fan, somebody who is always rooting loud in 109. Your thoughts just on the season to date?
It's my pleasure to come on and chat, John. Always willing to chat about the Dukes with anybody. Thoughts so far? I mean, could you be any more proud of what's going on in this forum, at least? There's 10 years, 20 years, 40 years. as I'm getting ready to go to work this week, I'm thinking, or on Friday morning rather, does it matter if you're a freshman this year, a senior, you graduated recently, a decade ago, 50 years ago when the program started? Like, the success of the program right now just kind of transcends graduation years, right? And I just couldn't be more proud as an alum, as a Harrisonburg resident, and just in the last 20 years, I've been a part of JMU football. It's quite a ride. And sometimes we get caught up in the rankings or the game days or the rules and transition stuff, but just enjoy the ride, right? It's awesome right now. There's never been a better time to be a Duke.
And with that, I know you're on tonight because you want to introduce some of the things that are happening with the Alumni Association this week, but I did want you to give an opportunity to kind of maybe talk about the role of the Alumni Association, kind of what role they play for JMU and how they kind of weave into the administration on weeks like this and why it's so important, the work that happens behind the scenes to make sure an event like homecoming can be such a success.
Of course. I guess a lot of folks probably don't understand that the Alumni Association is actually a separate arm of the university. It's a separate 501c3, and they fit under the Office of Donor Constituents, and it consists of a full-time office staff, although I will remark that they're a little bit short-staffed right now. Responsible for engaging and cultivating relationships with over 150,000 alumni, right? And I think that's a number that we recently crossed. I think it was this last graduating class. We add about 3,000 to 4,000 alums every year. And I think one of the biggest misconceptions that the association gets is, well, that's the group that calls me for money. That is an element of it, as obviously you guys have discussed fan engagement and donor engagement when it comes to JMU athletics. But I think part of the thing that I would hope to educate folks about is that while the Alumni Association is part of that donor engagement and that philanthropy part of JMU, there's a lot of ways to be engaged with JMU in terms of its donorship. A lot of folks give to their college. A lot of folks just don't. Athletics doesn't move the needle for them, but obviously athletics is the front porch of the university.
So before we get into some of the events that are happening this week, what are some of the ways that fans of JMU or just alums who are coming back can engage not only with the broader Alumni Association, but the Alumni Association in their area, wherever they live?
Yeah, I think the biggest way that folks can typically think about engaging with the Alumni Association is through chapter involvement or perhaps affinity groups. There's over 50 local alumni chapters. I think of things like Metro Dukes, Baltimore, Colorado, Boston, often in bigger cities, Philadelphia. But there are a couple of, they're scattered around the country, around the world for that matter. There's the London Dukes. There's a number of also like MRDs, cheerleading, Black alumni chapters, Latino. There's a lot of affinity groups, not just geographic spaces. So I think those are the ones that are most common. And I think some of the ones that are the hardest things for us to capture with the Alumni Association is what metrics folks are doing on the ground in their own hometowns, right? Maybe you're in an area where it's not a big population center, but a couple of JMU grads, you're having a watch party this weekend in your basement and having some friends over. It's really hard to capture those kinds of things, but some easy ways to do that is obviously wear your purple whenever you're out traveling. Always good for a Go Duke shout in the airports, right? But kind of just spreading the awareness through your social media outlets, flying flags in your front yard, that kind of thing. Always ways to get involved in or get to spread some of that engagement and outreach. And
Zach, one additional question I had for you, because it's something that was on my mind, particularly last night as I was standing out front of my house, and there were some JMU alums who live in my neighborhood who walked past the house, and they said, "Hey, we saw you on TV as a part of the ESPN broadcast." And that was just one interaction. But what's been really neat about the Sun Belt is I've seen a group of JMU alums and JMU fans become more engaged with this program now that we're at the FBS level. Maybe they hadn't been to a game in 10 or 15 years, but they're going now, or they're at least watching the games on their TVs at home, or they're meeting up at watch parties like in Richmond that Trip Hughes plans, or others around the country. What does this success in terms of potential for growth of the Alumni Association, what is that potential, do you think, in terms of maybe a new group of people becoming re-engaged with the university, whether that leads to increases in fundraising and donations, but just maybe an increase in JMU pride and awareness of the program? That can be huge for the university, just in terms of continuing to grow that spirit that surrounds JMU and the connection that they have to campus, and that pride we all feel, again, when we wear shirts like this and we go to the airport and the grocery store. We're in a real moment here for JMU to continue to maybe capitalize on all the attention the program's seeing.
Yeah, and that's a great point. You mentioned athletics being the front porch of the university. People being asked to donate. You guys do it on your show, right? The Montpelier Collective, Zach Price, Montpelier Collective, the Duke Club. There are a lot of need. I mean, money's an energy, right? And it doesn't grow on trees at JMU. We've talked about that. And so you want to give your hard-earned dollars to things that bring you value. There are a ton of ways that that can happen at JMU and through JMU. But I think one of the things that we need to also remember is that, particularly from donor engagement side of things, is it's important to remember to engage those relationships and not just ask for money, right? How long has it been since you've been to a game? Invite people back to your tailgates, and especially homecoming is a great opportunity to do that. How long has it been since you chatted with some of your professors or caught up with any of them, or done a forum for a class in your college or something like that? How about student mentorship opportunities? That is definitely a big area that we're trying to promote as well with the Alumni Association. So I just think that there's a ton of ways to get involved, and the success that we're feeling right now is an excellent opportunity to try and harness some of that and bring folks who maybe haven't been plugged in, like some of you folks here on the Sound Off, as well from year to year, to bring some of those, say, fringe fans back in and educate them about the opportunities there are to get involved and support at JMU. We talk about at the Alumni Association through like the 4 T's: time, talent, treasure, and testimony, right? Testimony is a big one. And maybe you have more time than treasure, or the other way around. And you can get involved with one of the many ways to engage with JMU.
So Zach, I'll let you end on this. So we know that homecoming starts long before Saturday's game at 8 p.m. Events all week. For fans of JMU who want to find maybe a deeper way to get involved in the homecoming spirit, not only touch on some of the events that are occurring this week, and again, mention how people can find out about these events whenever they're going to be heading into Harrisburg.
Yeah, good point. I think a lot of people associate homecoming as the football game at 8 o'clock on Saturday night, right? But homecoming is a week-long event, and at least through the Alumni Association, there's over 24 events that are being hosted, and they start on Monday night here, tomorrow night. There's Wednesday night, the association hands out the Purple Out t-shirts. I think a lot of folks remember that from their undergrad days. There's opportunities to meet with faculty and staff throughout the week. There's class reunions on campus, Greek life, Black alumni, and they're doing a brunch one day. Through like colleges and schools like SMAD, engineering, biology, honors, all of those are having events on campus. Friday is obviously a big day. I think you guys were talking about one with the collective earlier. Quad Fest is a thing that goes on Friday evenings. It starts at 5 o'clock. There's bands. The MRDs are there, but there's music, food, dancing. It's there is obviously a student element to that, but if you're in the area, it's a great opportunity to come back, hang out on the quad, plenty of space it's family friendly, kid friendly, obviously. One I told you I was going to plug if you brought me on here was the homecoming golf tournament. My wife, Laura, and I have been involved with the golf tournament for a better part of a decade, and that tees off on Friday morning at 11 o'clock. There's still 2 team slots open for that, and I think registration closes tomorrow. But if Tuesday hits and you're like, hey, I want to golf, look me up and we'll see if we can fit you in somewhere. Saturday, there's an event with the alumni office. It's called Bagels and Beer. It's on Festival Lawn. It's from 10 to 1. There's lunch. There's like 5 pours involved with it. All these things you can sign up for on the Alumni Association webpage, alumni.jmu.edu. Go to Homecoming 2023, view the full schedule. and obviously sign up for those things. Another one I'd point out, John, is watch parties. There are watch party signups on there for Virginia, Texas, Colorado, New York, Tennessee, North Carolina. Check out, see if your area is on any of those. And if you're looking for a place to go hang out with other JMU people, check those out. And, if you don't see your name on there, start one. Obviously, you may not get a registration page for the alumni office this week, but I think obviously Saturday night, it's a big deal. You don't have tickets. I think it's a sellout game. We know that, but tickets are out there. Ask John, ask me, ask other JMU fans, see if you can find them. They're out there. It's a big deal, right? National TV, 7-0. ODU has beat JMU every time they've played in Harrisonburg. We need to flip that this time around. First time there's been the home team's been ranked in Bridgeforth Stadium. So there's a lot of narratives. This game's a big deal, right? Whether you're in Harrisonburg or at home, this is a great week to engage folks about JMU.
Well, and I'll say this before we let you go, Zach. One of the things I think Taylor does such a great job when he talks about the meaning of football, the meaning of these games is it's more than just what happens on the field. I got to spend an entire weekend with Steve and Taylor and my friend Chandler this weekend and with some other Dukes who made the trip to Harrisonburg. And it was the memories that we made were in the car rides. They were in the tailgate lots and the conversations afterwards where we were staying. And there's going to be thousands and thousands of examples of that where, you see somebody for the first time you haven't seen in a while. You give a hug to somebody you haven't seen in 10 years. The Alumni Association does great work to make those memories and those opportunities and moments happen each and every day. And we just want to say thank you to you. I hope you'll be in 109 on Saturday. I always like seeing your wife and family there, but just to everyone involved in the Alumni Association, thanks for the work that you do to keep Dukes connected, to raise that passion and energy, because it matters on the field and it matters in the classrooms and everything else that happens. It matters for the future Dukes who see that passion and energy around Harrisonburg, and that's what makes them decide to come to JMU. So I really appreciate you, Zach, and look forward to seeing you and your family and so many others on Saturday as a part of the homecoming.
John, it's a pleasure for all of you guys. And, don't thank me, but we should be thanking you, because it's fan opportunities or fan engagement opportunities like this, other JMU podcasts. These are great outlets, and you guys are helping spread and promote and kind of to be the front line for folks out there. So we appreciate you and thank you for the work that you guys are doing.
Awesome.
You're not getting paid for it, right? I know that. So
if we are, we haven't heard about it yet.
Army.
So. Exactly. Well, thanks again,
Well,
Zach.
thank you
We'll
for
see
all
you
you're doing.
on Saturday. And with that, we're going to bring in the other guys from our team for our final thoughts. So many different ways we could take this. Really great discussion tonight. But a lot of statements made this week and a lot of statements that could be made on Saturday. Starting with you, Taylor, your final thoughts on what's going to be a big week in Harrisonburg for JMU.
There's a lot of storylines going around, so I got a lot of final thoughts, but I am going to make them quick. Now that the ODU guys are off, I can talk a little more purple tinted sunglasses. This isn't trash talk. This isn't smack talk. I'm just going to run through some quick numbers. Actually, I don't need to run through all the numbers. They are in the bottom half of almost every statistic I could find, including near the bottom at thing. I mean, they're near the bottom of the nation in terms of giving up sacks allowed. So it should be a field day for our defensive line. When you go through some of their defensive and offensive stats, I mean, I'm not going to go through one by one. Look them up on the Sunbelt website. They are bottom half and most of them near the bottom of the conference. So this should be a great opportunity to pounce. Having said that, statistics don't always tell the story, right? Because as we mentioned, 6 of their 7 games have been within 1 score. So it's a rivalry game. We're top 25. We all remember what happened last year when we broke into the top 25 and we're double-digit favorites. This time we're at home. I think that's something special. This is historic for JMU. If you're listening to this broadcast and you have people that are on the fence about coming to this game, I know it's sold out. There are ways to find tickets there. Be at this game. It is historic. This is the first time JMU is going to run out of that tunnel as a top 25 nationally ranked FBS Division 1A, whatever you want to call it, football program. Be at Bridgeforth. Couple other quick little notes. 4-0. We are 4-0 in the road this year. That is the best away game record in the country. There is no other team that has won 4 games on the road. real quick, some of the topics that I've talked about this week on social media, we the waiver stuff, and I don't want to get too deep into it, but I made a post earlier this week that I really want to stand by. A lot of people, even some JMU fans, are said, we knew the rules. Okay, we knew the rules. Stop complaining. And to the message you'll hear from Sound Off is just win. And I want to reiterate that, just win. That is all that matters. Having said that, and kind of going back to some of the stuff Steve said, there is a waiver process, and there's a waiver process for a purpose. And I posted a screenshot from when Liberty had their waiver approved by the NCAA. It was not a waiver for postseason. It was a waiver to bypass another rule that said you had to have a conference to move to Division I. And in that statement, the NCAA mentioned the readiness, the viability, and the ability to meet the FBS requirements to make such a move. And I'm just going to say, we are the top budget in the Sun Belt, and not only for football, but we support all of our programs across the board at a very high level. We're one of the top G5 budgets in the country. We have some of the best facilities at our level. And again, the success, 7-0, 8-3 last year. We're 15-3 in our first 2 years. We're top 25 for the second year in a row. There is a waiver process for a reason. So to say this, just win, that is the message I want to communicate. But at the same time, I also want to say, let's keep fighting this thing. Get on social media, cause a ruckus, let the public message be heard, because it is being picked up by a lot of national media outlets. And at the end of the day, win, lose, or draw, postseason or not, I'm going to be excited about being a part of this team. I want to thank the Attorney General, Jason Mieres, JMU grad. He's out there fighting the good fight and continuing to push this issue. So I want to thank him for that. And then the only couple things I'm going to end on, these are some of my two favorite things from this past week. I got to meet the patriarch and the matriarch of the Duke of Botetourt. I got a picture with the Horton family. It was probably the highlight of my trip. Right before that, I got to meet the Carpenters. And when Carpenter's dad turned around and looked behind me, he goes, "Oh, it's the Sound Off guys." So not only did I get to meet them, but them recognizing us just made me feel real special. I'm not sure, but I'm almost sure that as I was walking down the steps, I did run into members of the Logan family, so I almost hit the Southwest Virginia trifecta there. But big shout out to the Horton family, to the Logan family, to the Carpenter family, all of Southwest Virginia. I'm down here in Botetourt cheering you all on. And then the very last thing that I am going to highlight is something that both Zach and John touched on. It's kind of become a tradition. I mean, it's only been 2 years long, but last year, a group of guys, we all went down to an away trip for the App State game. This year, that same group of guys with one or two others made it a point to make our away game trip reunion to Marshall. We were there Wednesday through Saturday. We kind of made a weekend out of it. And again, all this stuff goes so much further and it's so much bigger than just a football game. It's so much bigger than a university and the trash talk and the smack talk. The memories, the relationships, the families, the connections, the networking. I mean, just all of the opportunities, the infinite opportunities that spring off of the success that JMU's having. It's something special, and it's something that happens because of a lot of the supporters internally at JMU, the staff, the faculty, the members of the team, but also externally, the donors, the NIL, the Duke Club, the alumni, the fans, the people in P lot, G lot, C lot, A, B, C, D, E, F, G lot. I mean, this is something that's really special, but it doesn't happen, and it can't always be guaranteed. I think this is obviously a team. We've done it for 20 years. We haven't had a losing record. I expect the next 20 years to continue the success, but you just don't know. Don't take this moment for granted. And whatever you can, whether it's through what Zach was talking about with the Alumni Association, whether it's your philanthropy to the NIL or to the Duke Club, or whether it's just showing up to a game and being an ambassador on social media and talking to your friends and just bringing them into this JMU family, do whatever you can. Go Dukes. Beat Old Dominion. I'll see you guys Saturday at Bridgeforth.
Well said. We need to coordinate menus, by the way, just offline. Michael, First of all, we didn't get a chance to talk to you about your engagement, so congratulations. You did well. Courtney seemed happy, but your final thoughts on anything related to that or what's happening this week?
I was going to say, how do I follow up on Taylor? But I think good news, Taylor, Courtney mentioned earlier, she's going to keep me. So fingers crossed I don't mess anything else up. I want to double down on what Taylor said, right? Like, don't take what's happening right now as a JMU fan for granted. I spent the last week in Salt Lake City for work, and I came off the plane at around 4 o'clock on Monday, and I got a Go Dukes out of a random person in Salt Lake City, other side of the country. On the way back in Chicago, I got the same Go Dukes as well. I have a VP in my company that went out of his way to mention, like, hey, you guys are 6-0, like Go Dukes, like you guys are making a lot of noise. This is an exciting time to be a JMU fan. And we mentioned about it a little bit earlier, but we're ranked in both the AP and coaches poll together for the first time. I don't think we were in the coaches poll last year at number 25. So take it in and enjoy it, right? Shout it out from the rooftops. If you're on Twitter, social media, whatever, be proud. And we are a proud group of JMU Dukes, and make sure people hear about it. And I'll say this, like Taylor mentioned about the postseason eligibility. I love it if we figure something out, right? Like, but at the end of the day, as fans, it's out of our control whether we're eligible or not. But in terms of the complaining, you know what's louder than us tweeting out or complaining on social media? It's letting others do the voice and shouting out for us. Like, think about what happened on Thursday with Matt Berry literally calling the NCAA a joke and a travesty. He quoted and said there are rosters out there getting fully loaded pickup trucks, and there's millions of dollars in NIL money, yet we can't play in a bowl game because of something archaic. And I think he used the word asinine at the same time. So just think about that. Just when the ESPNs, the CBSs, everyone out there is going to pick up the story and they're going to love it because you know what? We're going to interact with it and they're going to get clicks, they're going to get likes, they're going to get retweets, and it's going to be all over the place. Lastly, ODU this Saturday. 2012, I think it was October 2012. We're up 21-10 at halftime in Bridgeforth, only to lose 38-28 to the ODU Taylor Heineke's. I remember a lot of people at that game. Many of the people on this podcast and who's listening to us was at that game. I brought friends to that freaking game. I brought coworkers to that game. I went out of my way to bring people to that game, and that game still hurts me to this day. This weekend is personal, not just for me, not just for the players in the field, but for JMU Nation. Everyone remembers that day well. That was 2012. Only a year ago, we fired our coach and went on and on and on. So this weekend, if you bleed purple and gold, bring the freaking rain. Be loud, be proud, drink a lot, drink appropriately, and stay all 4 quarters and make it really hard for whoever their quarterback is to snap the ball. Go Dukes.
There you go. And if you're a student, we know there's parties this weekend. Wear your costume to Bridgeforth. Maybe get ready before. Stay in this. This is a big game, a game that's going to take all 4 quarters to complete. But as Michael said, pace yourself, throw in a Gatorade every once in a while because we want to make it to 8 p.m. And with that, I'm going to give the screen to one man who needs no introductions, doesn't need me on the screen to give what the fans have all been asking for all day. Steve Brown, your final thoughts.
Finally, JMU is back at Bridgeforth Stadium on Saturday night. ODU, JMU is going to do what it does best, and that's lay the smack down on your candy ass as part of the Junkyard Dog Tour 2023. Now, ODU, JMU understands what happened last night when you beat App State. You got down on your little knees and you put your little hands together and you said a prayer that sounded like this. Oh, dear God, you see my name is ODU, and we just beat App State. But there's one problem. Everybody still thinks that we absolutely suck. And then at that point, your stadium started to shake. The heavens opened up, and God himself spoke to ODU and said this, Old Dominion College, but our name's ODU. It doesn't matter what your name is. And you're absolutely right. You do suck. But there's one thing, and one thing only you can do. You must go find that team that's simply electrifying in all 3 phases of the game. A team that is undefeated in the Sun Belt, my favorite conference in football. Go find JMU. Oh, but God, anybody but JMU. Know your role and shut your mouth. And then ODU, as fear went through your body, you started to shake. The tears ran down your face. Your stadium started to shake. The clouds parted, the heavens opened. And what seemed like the millions and millions of voices all said to you in unison, Jabroni, if you smell what JMU is cooking,
Wow. Steve, thank you. We love you. We're so glad you're one of ours. And guys, safe travels to Harrisonburg. Can't wait to see each and every one of you at Bridgeport at different points. Taylor, obviously, again, we got to coordinate the menus. We have a long day of food that we need for all the guests we're having. So to everyone in JMU Nation, we appreciate your support. We saw another round of comments from people up at Marshall, how much they appreciate the podcast. People stop by at our joint broadcast with the Thundercast. We'll have content as we go throughout the week leading up to homecoming, but this is a special week, as everyone said. Enjoy this moment. Enjoy the week leading up to this. Enjoy the fact that we're 7-0. Enjoy all the articles that are going to come out this week about this conversation. And I'll say one thing: if you're planning on making a sign, be strategic. Think about what is ESPN going to put on air. What are they going to put on the broadcast? Keep it clean. Maybe use the NCAA's mission statement against them. Maybe put some of their values up. But at the end of the day, let's show the nation what they're missing out on. If you're a player that's watching this, just win. Just win. Don't let all the noise affect you. Show the NCAA, show the college football playoff what they're missing out on. And you never know what can happen, as Steve said. We appreciate your efforts, as always, the sacrifices and the effort you're putting into making this such a special season for all of us. And with that, we will see you guys on homecoming in Harrisonburg whenever you guys make the trip up to Harrisonburg. Enjoy it. And we'll be back on Sunday night next week at 8 p.m. for the next episode of JMU Sound Off. And as always, go Dukes. See you in Harrisonburg.